All right, today's topic is about multiplying binomials, okay? And the way we multiply binomials is we're going to use the FOIL method, okay? Now, hopefully some of you have heard of the FOIL method in the past, maybe last year. Maybe you touched on it, maybe you've heard of it at some point. But today we're going to go into it, kind of dive into it and figure out how to use the method to solve our equations. Now, if you remember, on the last video we had, we were multiplying a monomial binomial, which means we were just taking something from the outside, like let's say x, multiplying it by everything on the inside, like this, and we were multiplying x times that and x times that, right? And that's what we were doing. Well, foiling is basically the same thing, but we're just adding another element to it, okay? And I'll show you that now. Okay, so FOIL. So first off, to understand what FOIL means, we have first, outer, inner, and last. Okay, so that's what each letter means for FOIL: first, outer, inner, last. Okay, and that's the order in which you multiply the numbers by each other. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this in a simple way, or hopefully a simple way. So every time you do an equation, it's going to look something like this, where you're going to have two binomials. Okay, now binomials, what we talk about there, we're talking about this, where you have a term plus a term times a term plus a term. Now for this exercise, we're going to use A, B, C, and D. Okay, so you have A plus B is your first one, and C plus D is your second one. Now, don't get confused by this. Don't think, this is just an example to show you how the process of how it all works out, and to show you what we're actually multiplying each thing by. Okay, so the first thing we do, and this is for every single time we do this. Okay, there's no change in it. There's nothing that we do differently. Every time we FOIL, we're doing the same process in the same order that I'm showing you now. Okay, so your first. Okay, so the first thing we're going to multiply. Remember, this is all multiplying. The first thing you're going to multiply in your two problems here is A times C. Okay, so your first terms. Okay, that's the first terms in each binomial. You have A plus B, C plus D. Your first terms are A and C in each one. That's what you're going to multiply by, A times C. So your first terms here get multiplied, okay? The next one is outer. So outer means the terms that are on the, quote, outside of the two terms you have here. So in this case, your outer terms are A and D, okay? So you're multiplying A, do a better A there, A times D. Okay, so A times D, and that's the two you're multiplying with outer. So the first one is A times C, the second one, outer, is A times D. So basically it's your first term of the first one being multiplied by both terms in the second one. So A times C, A times D. That's what we're doing first, okay? Your inner, the third one you're multiplying by, okay, is your two inner terms of this whole thing. If you're looking at this as a whole, it's your two inner ones, okay, which in this case are B and C. So your inner is B times C, okay? So these are the two you're doing here. And then the last ones, your last, are of course the last terms in each binomial. In this case, B and D, okay? So this is what you're multiplying by. This is what it looks like every time. A times C, A times D, B times C, B times D, okay? So each of these first two, so everything gets multiplied by everything else. The A gets except for it in the same binomial. So both of these two ones, letters here, or terms, get multiplied by both the terms in this one here. So once again, your first is A times C, your first terms, and then the A gets multiplied by the D, the second term. And then with the B, the inner terms, the B gets multiplied by the C, and the B gets multiplied by the D. So you start here, multiply what's on the two inside here, then go to this one, multiply by those two there. And then everything at the end gets combined, okay? So if we were doing this, if we're writing this all out as an equation, okay, A times C would be AC plus A times D plus B times C plus B times D, okay? So that's how it would set up, okay, if you're writing this all out, all right? So this is kind of, so this is what it looks like, this is what it is. Like I said, don't, like I said, this is just to show you the way of how we're doing it, okay? So let me show you, that's kind of the process of setting it up, okay? Let me show you one more way of kind of how we're doing this, okay? So if we're still keeping this A plus B, C plus D, right? The first term here, right? The first term here, that's the first one you get multiplied, okay? And then those two get multiplied. That's your second one. And then these two get multiplied. And these two get multiplied, okay? So that's the order you're doing it, man. Okay, these two, and then these two, and then those two, and then those two, right? It's all added up here, okay? So just a different way to see it, okay? So that's the basic of how we're going to be doing this, of how we're going to be getting into it, and moving forward, I'll have this stuff written out to kind of show you and kind of follow along, but that's what we're going to be doing. All right, so this is the first video. Next video will be a few examples, simple examples of using the FOIL process.